Today we will learn about certain obstetric terms which are commonly in use. These terms are very important in our day-to-day practice of obstetrics, and without knowing the meaning of these terms, we cannot follow the obstetric topics. In general, we call a woman a mother when at any time in her life she had given birth to a child, and she remains to be a mother in all her life. But in obstetrics, we use the term mother in a more restricted sense. In obstetrics, what we mean by a mother is any woman who is pregnant or within 42 days of delivery. The period of pregnancy we call it is the antenatal period or antepartum period. The time in which the woman gives birth is called the intranatal or intrapartum period, and the laboring woman is called a parturient. After delivery, we call as a postnatal period up to 6 weeks. It is also called postpartum, and the 6 weeks after delivery, that period is we call as a puerperal period, and a woman as a puerperent. The period of pregnancy, or otherwise called prenatal or antepartum period, is about 40 weeks, and it is divided into 3 trimesters, meaning 3 months. And the first trimester is up to 12 weeks, second trimester from 13 to 28 weeks, and the third trimester from 29 to 40 weeks. The first and third trimester is about 12 weeks, but the second trimester is the longest, having 16 weeks. We all know a conceptus is formed by fertilization of an ovum by a sperm, and in a 28-day cycle, fertilization takes place on the 14th day. We call the conceptus by different names depending upon the period of gestation. The first 2 weeks after fertilization, it is still called an ovum, and from 4th week to 8 weeks, it is called an embryo, where there is rapid formation of the various organs of the body. It's called an embryogenic period. From 9 weeks onwards, it assumes the conceptus assumes the shape of a human, and up to 40 weeks, that is from 9 weeks to 40 weeks, that is till delivery, it is called a fetus. After birth, we call it as a neonate, and the neonatal period is 28 days after birth. Again, the neonatal period is divided into early neonatal, which consists of the first 7 days, and late neonatal from 8 days to 28 days of the birth. Perinatal period is the period from 28 weeks antepartum up to 7 days postpartum. So, it consists of both intrauterine as well as after delivery. Depending on the time at which the pregnancy gets terminated, we have different names. When the pregnancy is terminated before 22 weeks, or if the period of gestation is not known, a conceptus weighing less than 500 grams, we call it as an abortion. An abortion can be occurring either in the first trimester, that is before 12 weeks, or after between 13 to 22 weeks. It is called a second trimester abortion. When the pregnancy is terminated after 22 weeks and before 37 weeks completed, we call it as a preterm delivery, and the fetus is called a preterm fetus. When the delivery occurs between 37 weeks completed and before 40 weeks, we call it as a term pregnancy, and the fetus is called a term. If she delivers after 40 weeks, we call it as a past-term pregnancy. So, during abortion or an abortus, the fetus is considered to be non-viable. The word viability means if you take out the fetus from the utero, it should be able to survive by its own. So, according to WHO, before 22 weeks or a conceptus weighing less than 500 grams is considered to be non-viable. Or in other words, viability starts from 22 weeks or with a fetus of more than or equal to 500 grams. But in practice, it is taken as 28 weeks, and actually it depends upon the institution capability to survive a preterm infant. And commonly we take 28 weeks as the period of viability in practice, even though theoretically it is 22 weeks according to WHO. Obstetric score is a simple way to denote the obstetric career of a woman, and it is denoted by English alphabet in capital letters: G for gravida, P for para, L for living, and A for abortion. We will come to examine one by one. When we call a woman a gravida, we mean she is pregnant now. And a woman getting pregnancy for the first time is called a primigravida or simply primi. And if she is getting pregnant for the first time after or at or after 35 years of age, she is called a elderly primi. If a woman gets pregnant before 19 years of age, she is called an adolescent primi. Both adolescent primi and elderly primi belong to special groups because they have more complication compared to the age group between 20 to 35. A woman getting pregnant for the second, third, etc., we call it a multigravida. Parity represents the number of previous pregnancies which has gone beyond the period of viability. So, it includes number of previous pregnancies which may be either a preterm delivery or a term delivery. It doesn't include an abortion. It doesn't include this pregnancy. A woman having one child, we call as a primipara. She had more than one child, we call as a multipara. And if she is having more than 4 past pregnancies, it has gone beyond the period of viability, we call her as a grand multipara. The alphabet L denotes the number of living children the woman has now, and A denotes abortions. For example, I have denoted a woman's obstetric career as G4, P2, L2, A1, which means she is getting pregnant for the 4th time. 2 of her past pregnancies has gone beyond the period of viability, and she had 2 living children, and one of her past pregnancy was an abortion. Once the woman becomes pregnant and it is confirmed, the next question that the patient, the relative, as well as the doctor ask maybe when was the approximate date of delivery. Expected date of confinement or expected date of delivery is calculated from the LMP. By LMP means the first day of the last menstrual period. Remember, it is the first day of the last menstrual period. And from the last menstrual period, we calculate the expected date by the Naegeli's rule. It says you can get the expected date of delivery by adding 9 months and 7 days to the first day of the last menstrual period. Or you can subtract 3 months from the LMP and add 7 days. The average duration of a human pregnancy is 280 days, or in weeks it is 40 weeks, or 9 months plus 7 days. Gestation age means the age of the fetus expressed in weeks up to this day. When we calculate the expected date of delivery, we cannot expect all women to deliver on that particular day. If you take 100 pregnant women, only 4% will deliver on the day of expected date. This is because Naegeli's rule is based on the assumption that every woman had a 28-day cycle and the conception occurred on 14th day of the cycle. But in reality, only a few women may have a 28-day cycle. Majority of them, the cycle may be varying from 25 to 35 days. Or even if a woman having a 28 day, there can be instances where the ovulation may be delayed and not taking place on the 14th day. So, depending upon her date, so we have to see whether her LMP is reliable or not, which means whether there is any chance of delayed ovulation or having an irregular cycle. For that, we have to classify the date as either excellent, good, or poor date. This slide shows how to calculate the gestational age of a fetus from a last menstrual period. For instance, suppose a woman has a last menstrual period on January 10, 2021. Her expected date of confinement calculated according to Naegeli's rule is October 17, 2021. To calculate the gestational age, you have to calculate the number of days from January 10th to today, that is May 10th. So, you can see in January there are 3 weeks and 0 days left. In February, 4 weeks plus 0 days. Likewise, you have to calculate in March, April and May. In May, today is 10th, so 1 week plus 3 days. So, adding together, you got 99 days and you can divide it by 7 to convert into weeks, or you can add up the weeks and day, which gives 14 weeks plus 1 day. I already told you the application of Naegeli's rule may not be accurate in calculating the expected date of delivery if the woman has an irregular cycle or any cycle other than 28 days or have a delayed ovulation. So we have to, on the first visit itself, we have to see her days are reliable or not. And the days can be classified into excellent days, good days, and poor days. We say a woman may be having an excellent date if her calculated gestation age according to last menstrual period correspond to the gestation age calculated by a first trimester ultrasound. If an ultrasound is taken within 12 weeks of gestation, the error in ultrasound may be roughly around 5 days. So, if the both gestation age as calculated by LMB and as per the ultrasound correspond, and that is only a difference of less than 5 days, we can say her dates are excellent. Suppose a woman has a reliable date, but there is no first trimester ultrasound, but she had an ultrasound which is taken before 20 weeks, but not in the first trimester. If you take the ultrasound after 13 weeks and between 20 weeks, the error may be plus or minus 1 week. That means a ultrasound gestation age of 16 week means it can be either a 15-week fetus or a 17-week fetus. So, if it is corresponding, the gestation age calculated by last menstrual period is corresponding with the ultrasound taken before 20 weeks, and if the difference is around 1 week, then we can see the dates are somewhat reliable and we can say she had a good date. We say a woman's dates are poor is not reliable. If she had a irregular cycle or doesn't remember the last menstrual period and there is no ultrasound to correlate, it is taken before 20 weeks. A late ultrasound that is taken after 20 weeks, it is not good for calculating the gestation age because the error may be 2 to 3 weeks. That means if the ultrasound gives the gestation age of suppose 25 weeks, the actual gestation age may be either 22 weeks or it may be 28 weeks. So there is a large difference and the error may be too large to arrive at a conclusion. Then we say she is having a poor date. So it is mandatory that at the first visit itself you have to calculate the gestation age and to know whether it is reliable or not. Now we have to be familiar with the various terms we use to describe the fetus in utero. The terms commonly used are the lie, attitude, presentation, presenting part, position, station, engagement. A term uterus is having a shape of an ovoid. So, to occupy the or utilize the ovoid shape, the fetus also should assume a ovoid shape. And this is by uh, manifesting or assuming an attitude called universal flesh. The word attitude means the relationship of the fetal part to one another. So, in obstetrics, the word attitude means relationship of the fetal parts to one another. And the common attitude is that of a universal flexion. By universal flexion, what we mean is all the joints of the body of the fetus are in flesh. The spine is fleshed and the head is fleshed at the neck and the chin resting on the sternum. The upper limb fleshed and folded over the chest. And it is folded or flexed at the shoulder, at the elbow also. And the lower limb is flexed at the hip, flexed at the knee, and the ankles are dorsiflexed and crossed over one another. So all the joints of the fetus are in flexion, and assuming an attitude of universal flexion, it assumes an ovoid shape. And this fetal ovoid has two poles. One is the cephalic pole, which consists of the head, and the podalic pole, otherwise called the breech part. So remember, by assuming an attitude of universal flexion, the fetus assumes an ovoid shape and which can comfortably occupy the ovoid shape of the uterus. And this fetal ovoid has a cephalic pole and a podalic pole. Lie of the fetus is a term we commonly use, and it means relationship of the longitudinal axis of the uterine ovoid to the longitudinal axis of the fetal ovoid. If the two axes are parallel, we call it as a longitudinal lie. If the longitudinal axis of the uterine ovoid is at perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the fetal ovoid, we call it as a transverse line, and it is called an oblique line if the two axes are at an angle. The most common lie is the longitudinal lie, and 95 to 98% of the fetuses lie in longitudinal lie. The term presentation denotes to the part of the fetal ovoid which occupies the lower part of the uterus. If the head occupies the lower part of the uterus, we call it as a cephalic presentation. If the breech part occupies the lower part, we call it a podalic presentation or a breech presentation. So in a longitudinal lie, it can be either a cephalic presentation or a breech presentation. And if the lie is transverse, the lowermost part occupying will be the shoulder. Then we call it as a shoulder presentation. The most common presentation is cephalic, followed by breech. 95% of the presentation will be cephalic. Presenting part is defined as the lowermost part of the presentation and first to enter the pelvis. And presenting part will vary depending on the attitude of the fetus. In a cephalic presentation, when the head is well flexed, the lowermost part will be the vertex. By vertex, we mean the area surrounded by the two parietal eminences on laterally, posteriorly, a point just below the occiput, and anteriorly, middle of the anterior fontanelle. That area is called the vertex, which is the lowermost part in a cephalic presentation if the head is well flexed, which is the most common presenting part. If the universal flexion is disturbed at the head, depending upon the degree of disturbance or degree of extension, the lowermost part, that is the presenting part, may be varying. It may be the frontal bone, what we call as the brow presentation, or in extremely extended head, the face may be the dependent part. Then we call as the presenting part may be face. So, in a cephalic presentation, depending upon the degree of flexion or extension. The presenting part may be either vertex, it can be a brow presentation, it can be a face presentation. The most common presenting part is vertex. In 90% of the cases, the presenting part will be vertex. When the presentation is breech, that is, the podalic pole occupying the lower part of the uterus. Again, depending on the degree of flexion of the limbs, you can get different types of breech presentation. Or the presenting part may be a complete breech, where the presenting part may be consisting of both buttock and the foot. Or it can be an incomplete breech, where it may be one limb or with both buttocks, or a frank breech where the legs are extended, so the lowermost part will be the two buttocks. Sometimes the baby can extend at the hip, so the presenting part may be both foot, one or both foot. Then we call it as a footling presentation. So in a podalic presentation or a breech presentation, the presenting part may be complete breech, frank breech, a footling breech, depending upon the degree of flexion of the lower limbs. Position and station are two terms which is used with respect to the pelvis of the woman. Position of the fetus, we mean position of the fetus, we mean the position of the denominator with respect to the four quadrants of the pelvis. So we have to imagine a cross section of the pelvis. The inlet or the brim of the pelvis is represented by an almost circular or transversely oval shape as represented in the figure. You can divide it into four quadrants. You get two anterior quadrants and two posterior quadrants, and you can have two right quadrants and the two left quadrants. And if you want, you can have an intermediate position which is directly anterior, one is directly posterior, and transverse position, one on the right and other on the left. So you can describe minimum 4 positions or at the greatest 8 positions. So we have defined position as the position of the denominator with respect to the 4 quadrants of the pelvis. Denominator is nothing but an arbitrarily chosen bony point on the presenting part, and the denominator varies depending upon the presenting part. In a vertex, occiput is taken as the denominator. In face, mentum or chin is the denominator. In brow, sinciput is the sinciput or the brow or the frontal bone is taken as the denominator. In breech, sacrum is the bony point chosen as the denominator, and in shoulder, acromion is the denominator. So remember, the denominator varies with the presenting part. And since vertex is the most common presenting part, most of the position we describe is depending upon the position of the occiput. This figure shows the various position of the fetus in a vertex presenting part. You know, in a vertex presenting part, occiput is the denominator, and the position is described in 3 letters. L or R represent the side, whether it is the right quadrant or the left quadrant of the pelvis. A represents anterior, P represents posterior, T represents transverse position, and the middle letter O represents the occiput. So when we say LOA, it means the occiput is lying in the left anterior quadrants of the pelvis. If it is a ROA, means the occiput lies in the right anterior quadrants of the pelvis. Likewise, ROP means right occipito-posterior. ROT means right occipito-transverse. So, these are the various positions, and the most common position is the left occipito-anterior, followed by right occipito-anterior. Then comes the right occipito-posterior, and the least common is the left occipito-posterior. This figure shows the various positions possible when the face is the presenting part, and in a face, mentum is the denominator. So you can see there is the 8 positions, and the most common is the left mendo anterior, which means the chin is occupying on the left side anterior quadrant. Then comes the right mendo anterior position, and then comes the right mendo posterior position. Whatever the type of breech, whether it is a frank breech, complete breech, footling presentation, sacrum is the denominator, and the position of the breech is described as left sacro-anterior, right sacro-anterior, right sacro-posterior, left sacro-posterior, like that, and with the intermediate positions as shown in the figure. Coming to the station of the fetus. Station is again described with respect to the maternal pelvis. By station we mean position of lowermost point on the presenting part with respect to the ischial spine. Ischial spine is the midpoint of the pelvic cavity, which is taken as a 0 station. And above the spine, it is denoted as a minus station, and below spine we call as a plus station. And the total depth of the pelvic cavity is roughly 10 centimeter. So when we take the ischial spine at the 0 station, there is 5 centimeter from the ischial spine to the brim of the pelvis, and it is divided into 5 stations. So when I say minus 1 station, I mean the lowermost part of the presenting part is minus or 1 centimeter above the ischial spine. Likewise, there are 5 minus stations, each consisting of 1 centimeter. And when I say the presenting part is at minus 5, I mean it is 5 centimeter above the ischial spine, that is at the brim of the pelvis. Below the spine is again divided into 5 stations, which we call as the plus stations. And when I say it is plus 1 station, I mean the lowermost part of the presenting part is 1 centimeter below the ischial spine. And if I say plus 3 station, that means 3 centimeter below the ischial spine. And if I say plus 5 station, the presenting part is at the perineum or at the outlet of the pelvis. This figure shows a longitudinal section of the pelvis with the ischial spine as a zero station and the various station, the fetal head at various station. You can see the plus station which is below the spine and the minus station above the spine. The term engagement means the greatest transverse diameter of the fetal head, that is, the biparatal diameter, has gone through the pelvic brim. The first picture shows where the head is, the biparatal diameter is above the pelvic brim and the head is unengaged. Whereas the second figure shows the biparatal diameter has gone below the pelvic brim and it is called an engaged head. Though pregnancy is a physiological event, potential complications can occur which will endanger the life of the woman. And death of the mother is called a maternal mortality, and it is defined as death of a woman while pregnant or within 6 weeks of delivery, irrespective of site or duration of pregnancy, and the cause may be incidental, coincidental, but not due to accident. The maternal death may be either due to directly related to the pregnancy, or the pregnancy may result in aggravation of an underlying disease, or she may contract some diseases like influenza or now coronavirus, which we call as incidental causes. So whatever may be the cause, it is considered as a maternal death. But death due to accident is excluded from the maternal mortality. Maternal mortality can be expressed in two ways for the sake of statistics. The most commonly we use maternal mortality ratio. It is the number of women dying during pregnancy or within 6 weeks of delivery, expressed as a ratio to 1 lakh live birth. So maternal mortality ratio is the number of women dying to the per 1 lakh live birth. It can also be expressed as a rate where the denominator is the number of women in the reproductive age group. So the number of maternal deaths divided by the number of women in the reproductive age group. We usually use the maternal mortality ratio. To describe the death of the fetus, we often use different terms depending upon the time of demise. If the death occurs during the antenatal period, that is in utero, we call it as an intrauterine death or IUD. If the death of the fetus occurs during the process of delivery, or if the delivery result in a dead fetus, we call it as a stillbirth. And a stillbirth can be a fresh stillbirth where the death occurred recently, or it can be a macerated stillbirth where the death may be occurring reasonably olden or reasonable before, and resulted in degeneration of the fetus. Perinatal death means death of the fetus after 28 weeks of gestational age and within 1 week of delivery. And it is expressed as a rate where the number of death in the perinatal period to the 1000 live birth. Neonatal death is death of the newborn within 28 days of delivery, and it can be either divided into early and late. Early means the death of the newborn occurs within 7 days of delivery, and it is often related to obstetrics. The late neonatal death occurs after 7 days and within 28 days of birth. When the death occurs after 28 days, we call as an infant death. Health index, the word means the quality of healthcare in a nation, and there are different parameters to measure the health index. Maternal mortality ratio and perinatal mortality rate are two commonly used health index to denote the quality of healthcare in an antenatal woman. To conclude, we have discussed the various obstetric terms which are in common practice. You have to be thorough with these terms so that you can follow further obstetric topics. Thank you.